Hey guys, welcome to StudyIQ. My name is Prashant Dhawan, and in this video we will talk about the recent crisis in the Middle East where Qatar seems to have been isolated. So first of all, let's just go through all the things that we will be studying in this video. First of all, we will try to know why the 6 Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Bahrain, UAE, Libya, Yemen, why they all decided to cut all diplomatic relations with Qatar. What exactly happened there? Then we will try to analyze how Donald Trump's recent visit to Saudi Arabia influenced this new development. And of course, we will also talk about how all this crisis will affect India. And of course, whose side will India take? These two questions are quite important. So hopefully you will watch this video till the end. Let's begin. I think it will be wise of us if we understand the geography first. Don't you guys agree? I think you guys do agree. So first of all, just have a look over here. This is India, our lovely India. And if you go to the western side over here, you see Iran over here, right? This is Iran, and on the southern side over here, this is Qatar, and the capital of Qatar is Doha. Now over here you can actually see all the countries that we will be talking about in this video: Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Bahrain. This is Bahrain, this little country over here, Bahrain, and over here this is Abu Dhabi, this is UAE, and over here, if we zoom out a bit, you can see Libya and Egypt. So these 6 countries have decided to cut all diplomatic ties with Qatar. Alright. Now let's understand why this happened. Now 6 Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Bahrain, UAE, Libya, Yemen, all of them have cut their relations with Qatar over its alleged support to terrorism. Alright. Now these 6 countries, now this is the reason, this is the excuse that they are giving to the rest of the world, that this is the reason why we have done this, but this isn't really the real reason. We will discuss the genuine reasons in this video as well. So the obvious question over here is, should Qatar be concerned about this development? Should it be worried? Well, to answer this question, yes, it should be very worried, because under the move, Saudi Arabia closed its borders with Qatar and ended land, sea and air contact with Qatar. So that is very bad for the people in Qatar. Why? Let me explain. Because look, Qatar is an energy rich country, but it is heavily reliant on food and other essential supplies. So all the food and the other essential supplies that Qatar gets, it gets from Saudi Arabia. All the trucks cross the border through Saudi Arabia and then they enter Qatar, as I showed you in the map. So because of that, news media has reported that people have started buying goods and started hoarding it in because of panic, because they believe that soon there will be a food shortage and they just want to stay safe. So this is the sort of situation Qatar is in right now. And wait, it gets worse. It gets much worse. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, they have also told Qatar that their citizens have 2 weeks, 14 days to leave these 3 countries, and the diplomats of Qatar have 48 hours to quit and go back to Qatar. So this is quite significant. Just imagine if something like this happened to India. Imagine if US suddenly tells India that we will cut all diplomatic relations with you. All your diplomats must be sent back to India within 48 hours. And all the Indians that are in US, they must go back to India within 14 days. Just imagine how worrying that whole scenario will be. So now you can sort of relate to what the people in Qatar must be going through. Other than that, Qatar's stock market fell 7.2% because of all these recent developments, and 7.2% is a lot. You can imagine billions of dollars must have been wiped off within a couple of days. So this is the impact that Qatar is feeling because of these recent developments. Now some of you guys who have keen interest in geopolitics must be wondering, how did things fall apart so quickly between Qatar and Saudi Arabia? Didn't these 2 countries have a somewhat healthy relationship? Well, you are right. Both of these countries were on the same page, and over here I have some points to prove my argument. Saudi Arabia and Qatar both are members of Gulf Cooperation Council, and there are a total of 6 members in this council. So of course Saudi Arabia and Qatar probably weren't in very bad terms, right? They probably had some communication there. Other than that, they share several common geopolitical interests as well. For example, both are working in Syria towards the same goal, although Saudis are supporting a different militant group. Qatar is supporting a different militant group, but both the militant groups are trying to achieve the same thing. They are trying to overthrow the Bashar al-Assad regime, and they are trying to establish a puppet government in Syria. So over there they are pretty much working together, right? Other than that, Qatar is also a member of the Islamic Military Alliance, which is also known as Arab NATO. It is basically a counter-terror military alliance of Sunni countries. So all these points prove that Qatar and Saudi Arabia weren't on bad terms. So now the mystery becomes even more intriguing. What exactly happened that Saudi Arabia had to take such drastic measures? Now the question is, what triggered this action? This is quite interesting. Well, look, as you probably know, a few days ago, Donald Trump visited Saudi Arabia, and over there he criticized Iran. Iran, a country that is an enemy of Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, if your enemy is being criticized, you will be happy. And Saudi Arabia was pretty happy. But an interesting thing happened afterwards. After Donald Trump criticized Iran, the leader of Qatar, Amir Sheikh, was quoted saying that US shouldn't have done that, and it is only increasing hostility with Iran, which is not good. And it also claimed that tensions between Qatar and US could arise because of this. Now, apparently after the media covered this statement, the Qatari leader, he said that he never made such statements, but it was too late. By the time the Qatari leader tried to clear the air, it was way too late, and Saudi Arabia had enough, and they decided that they must cut all the diplomatic relations with Qatar in order to teach Qatar a lesson. Now, one might say that the Iran incident, the recent Iran incident, was the straw that broke the camel's back. But it is not that easy. I mean, the problem is more complex. First of all, let's just discuss the rise of Muslim Brotherhood and how Qatar constantly kept supporting them. Look, Qatar has in recent years nurtured a strong ambition of following an independent foreign policy. Unlike UAE or Bahrain, Qatar has refused to act like just another satellite in the Saudi geopolitical orbit. And the evidence of rift first appeared when Qatar welcomed the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. You see, in 2011, when Hosni Mubarak's regime was overthrown by the Muslim Brotherhood, all the 6 Arab nations, they didn't like this because, look, primarily Saudi Arabia wants stability. It does not want revolutions, it does not want changes in regimes. So Muslim Brotherhood was the epitome of change. It was the epitome of the Arab Spring, and since Qatar was supporting it, it really irritated, it really annoyed the rest of the Arab nations. When the Brotherhood government of 2013 was overthrown by Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the Saudis welcomed the development, but Qatar and the royal family funded television station Al Jazeera, by the way, Al Jazeera has enormous soft power. Al Jazeera has a huge network. It is watched around the globe by millions of people, and people actually listen to what Al Jazeera has to say. So Qatar even used its soft power, and it used Al Jazeera to convey to the rest of the world that whatever happened with Muslim Brotherhood was wrong, and it also conveyed that Qatar still stands with the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, this again led to a diplomatic crisis that broke out in 2014 when Saudi Arabia, Bahrain and UAE temporarily suspended diplomatic ties with Qatar. And by the way, I'll tell you that in 2014 things weren't all that bad. They quickly resolved, and all the countries, they negotiated peace and things were back to normal again. But this time around, it seems that the problem is much worse. Another flashpoint is Qatar's ties with Iran. Historically, Qatar has played off both sides of Iran-Saudi rivalry. Although its policies were very much in line with Saudi Arabia, it did not want to undermine its ties with Iran completely. For example, when Saudi Arabia and some of its allies cut diplomatic ties with Iran following the crisis erupted after the kingdom executed a Shia cleric, Sheikh Neymar al-Neymar, in January 2016, Qatar recalled its ambassador but refused to cut ties. Alright, So the Saudis were upset about this, and basically all this slowly created differences between Qatar and Saudi Arabia. The Saudis kept saying that Qatar is pursuing its own interests either through supporting the Brotherhood or through its ties with Iran at the expense of GCC. Gas, or I should rather say liquefied natural gas, has become a very desirable source of energy in recent years. India has become the second largest importer of liquefied natural gas in the world, beating Japan. So you can pretty much imagine that the countries that export gas are probably earning a lot of money, and that is true. So God has actually blessed Qatar with massive gas reserves, and the strange thing is that by 1970s the Qatari government had absolutely no idea that they had such enormous reserves near their country. And the funny thing is that they didn't even try to extract it for a very long time for some odd reason. But like the other Gulf countries, Qatar was quietly exporting some of its oil. It doesn't really have a lot of oil compared to Saudi Arabia. It's very much small in size, so its oil fields aren't really that deep and they aren't that big. So oil wasn't really fetching the Qatari government a lot of money. But as soon as they started working on their gas reserves, and in 1995 the first shipment of liquefied natural gas was shipped from the world's largest reservoir. Now what is the world's largest reservoir? It is the South Pars North Dome field over here in the Persian Gulf. A little portion of it belongs to Iran, and the major chunk of this gas reservoir belongs to Qatar. And one of the reasons Qatar tried to pursue good relations, cordial relations with Iran, was that it wanted to work on this gas reservoir without any problems, because Qatar knew that since Saudi Arabia has differences with Iran, and if Saudi Arabia pushes Qatar to follow its foreign policy, then Qatar will not be able to use its natural resources properly. So one of the reasons why Qatar pursued an independent foreign policy was because of the natural gas in the Persian Gulf. Okay, so this is by far the world's largest natural gas field, and another thing is that it is very easily extractable. Now, of course, you must have heard that Russia has the largest reservoirs of overall, the largest reserves of gas in the world. But the problem is that it is very difficult to extract gas in the Russian terrain. Gas is very difficult to extract because you have to invest a lot in order to extract the gas, and sometimes the cost of extracting is actually more than the cost of gas itself. So although Russia is also blessed by Mother Nature with a lot of natural gas, it is difficult to extract. But the gas in this Persian Gulf, it is very easy to extract, and it has earned Qatar a lot of riches. So the wealth that followed after Qatar started exporting the gas, it turned Qatar into one of the richest nations in the world, or perhaps some would say the richest nation in the world according to GDP per capita. The list keeps on changing. Don't focus too much on that data. Focus on the crux, that Qatar became very rich because of the natural gas it was exporting, and this also helped Qatar pursue its own foreign policy. It became more determined in its pursuit to actually create an own identity for itself. And in 2016, recently, Qatar also invested $2.7 billion in Russia's state-run Rosneft. Rosneft is a big Russian company. It has also invested a lot of money in India, and India's ONGC has also invested a lot of money in Rosneft's gas fields. Now, some of you must be wondering, how does Donald J. Trump come into the picture? How did the leader of the free world influence this new development? Well, look, during US President Donald Trump's recent visit to Saudi Arabia, he called all the nations of conscience. Basically, he just called all the nations to isolate Iran. Why? Because Iran is aggressively pursuing its nuclear ambitions. It is trying to achieve its dream of becoming a nuclear power in the region. and the US does not want that because America's ally Israel is very much against the idea. It believes that its security will be threatened if Iran possesses a nuclear bomb. So Donald Trump is constantly trying to put more and more pressure on Iran so that its will is shaken and it finally decides to abandon its nuclear program. So since Donald Trump was piling on more pressure on Iran, and since Saudi Arabia already has differences with Iran, both of them were quite happy criticizing Iran, but Qatar openly disagreed with the criticism, and in a statement issued by the government, they said that this is uncalled for and we do not need this. However, later on, when the media started reporting this, the Qatar government immediately said that we have not said anything like that. Some hackers must have hacked our website and they must have written all this information over there. But by then it was too late. The Saudi-led Retribution followed. The Saudi government and its allies, they pretty much had decided that now it's time to teach Qatar a lesson. It's trying to teach this little country that is trying to pursue its own foreign policy a lesson. And the only way to do that is to cut all diplomatic ties with it. So this is how Donald Trump comes into the picture. Now, how will the crisis affect India? First of all, India should be concerned. Why? Because India is a major importer of Qatari gas. It has imported around 8.5 million tons of LNG every single year for a very long time, and the demand might rise in the near future. Other than that, thousands of Indian workers are working in Qatar as construction workers, and some of them are also doing white collar jobs. So basically there are a lot of Indians over there, and their security matters to India as well. So for the time being, our Minister of External Affairs, Sushma Swaraj, she has said that India does not see its relations in the Gulf facing any issues as this whatever is happening with Qatar right now. According to Sushma Swaraj, it is an internal matter of the Gulf Cooperation Council. Okay. And other than that, the finance head of Petronet LNG, RK Garg, told that the gas supply from Qatar will not be affected because India imports gas from Qatar through the sea route. So even though Qatar has been blockaded by Saudi Arabia, since its borders have been closed for Qatar now, even though this problem is over there, India can still easily import gas for the time being, and hopefully this whole issue will resolve. Other than that, the long-term impact of the recent development can be that the 2022 FIFA World Cup can be affected. When Qatar won the right to host the 2022 FIFA World Cup, the whole nation was in joy because, of course, hosting this massive event is a matter of huge pride for any nation. But since this problem has emerged, FIFA might reconsider its decision if the situation keeps on worsening in the future. And do you guys know where will the 2018 FIFA World Cup be held? Where will this World Cup be held? It will be held in Russia. Okay. So anyway, this FIFA World Cup is in jeopardy. Other than that, Qatar Airways flies around 24,000 Indian passengers every week. And since airspace will also be affected by this crisis, so Indian passengers will have to face a lot of hassles. Apart from that, India also imports a lot of other things from Qatar like ammonia, urea, polythene, and of course, we talked about LNG. So these imports might get affected in the long run if this problem is not sorted out quickly. So these are the long-term impacts of the recent development. Now let's just have a look at all the members of GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council. It is headquartered in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So over here you can see all the members. Bahrain, it has broken all diplomatic ties with Qatar. Kuwait has not done anything like that. It is just, it has actually followed the policy of wait and watch. Oman as well, it has not broken any ties with Qatar for the time being. Saudi Arabia, as you know, it has cut off all diplomatic ties with Qatar, and so has UAE. Okay, so these are the 6 members of Gulf Cooperation Council. And this is the end of the video. Hopefully you liked this video, and if you did, make sure to like this video and share it with your friends, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you already have not. and I will make more videos for you guys very soon. Thank you for watching this video. God bless you all.